Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's been having a great week out there so far. Here to speak on the weather. And the first thing we'll go over is today's weather. We'll speak on current conditions, the latest outlooks, watches, warnings, advisories, and all that stuff. And then we'll break down the country section by section. There is a few states we'll zoom into as always that just run the higher risk of more high impact weather for today. The Mid-Atlantic is definitely an area of the country I am watching for just a higher risk of strong to severe storm activity. So we'll zoom into those areas. After we get done talking about today's weather, we'll speak on the pattern to come over the next several days, and we'll go as far out as like the next 10 to 15 days also. I do think we're just going to have an active stormy pattern across the eastern sections of the country and even the southern tier of the country for the foreseeable future, all the way through about the middle, probably about the middle portion of the month. So we'll speak on that, what's driving all of that, and get detailed on it. After we get done discussing that, we'll round the video off with an update on the tropics. We're done with the Chantal. It brought just a ton of flooding across areas of North Carolina and surrounding states, but especially North Carolina. But we're waving goodbye to that storm system. Is there anything else worth watching out there? We're going to continue to pump out updates because, we are ticking day by day closer to the significant uphill climb to peak hurricane season. So we just got to continue to watch out there, even if there's not a whole lot of anything going on. So we'll speak on an update on the tropics. If you're interested in just jumping ahead to that and you just want update info on that, I got you covered there. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Asking for prayers so I can make it through this video smoothly. It has just been a pain to start this video this morning. I've had to start over about 10 to 15 times, but hopefully we can get this going pretty well. So let's get rocking and rolling. So we do have an area of shower and storm activity surging through Missouri right now at this hour. Some activity still up here in Iowa, back here in Kansas, some shower and storm activity in eastern Oklahoma, northern Arkansas. We got some storms kind of hugging the Gulf coastline. The remnants of Chantal is heading off the eastern shoreline now. We got some rain up here in Maine, and we got some moisture up here in the UP of Michigan and northeast Minnesota at this hour right now too. So, the western U.S. looks pretty quiet, and a good chunk of the eastern U.S. is pretty quiet also. We just have these complexes of storms kind of out here in the middle of the country currently. So continue to move forward here. Watches, warnings, and advisories. There are a lot of heat advisories scattered about, stretching from like the PD of South Carolina through the eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia. We got flood watches kind of over or underlapping, whatever you want to call it, heat advisories. So we got the flood watches in place across the I-95 corridor of southern New England down to the Mid-Atlantic. But we also have the heat advisories also. So if you kind of mix both of them together, it's going to be a hot and soupy air mass, just because if there's flood watches in place, they're calling for a good bit of rain, and that is definitely adding to the humid air mass out there, or creating the humid air mass. So definitely hot, soupy conditions out ahead of a cold front that's really going to fire up some showers and storms today across these areas. But heat advisories across Montana. We got red flag warnings in the hot pink, and we do have these extreme heat warnings. I always have to double check because a lot of these colors blend together down here. You got the burgundies, the excessive heat watches, the extreme heat warnings, the heat advisories. It just seems like it's a bit of overkill sometimes with all these heat alerts. But anyways, just my opinion. But we do have a lot of just heat alerts out here for sure. So watches, warnings as far as the Storm Prediction Center outlook. We have a huge marginal risk stretching across the high plains, going down to the southern high plains, going across areas of the central plains, all the way into the Mississippi Valley region. So anywhere in this dark green area, you're going to have a risk of showers and storms, but you have a higher risk of some of these storms getting to strong to severe limits. But the big risk area as far as severe weather chances for today is in this yellow area. That's a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. But notice there is a marginal risk that stretches from southern New England all the way down to Columbia, South Carolina, which is where I live. But some of these highly populated areas, New York City, Philadelphia, down to Baltimore, Washington, D.C., all the way down to Richmond, Charlottesville has a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. So what's driving this? The tornado outlook is sub 2%, so does not show up. Tornado risk is not very high with today's setup. It normally isn't very high in this area of the country this time of the year. But the wind threat is really what's driving this. If you live in this yellow area, that is a 15% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location today. And the hail threat, it doesn't even show up on your screen. There is a risk of some hail with some of these storms out west, though, in this marginal risk area. The flash flooding threat, we need to watch out for areas of eastern Oklahoma, Arkansas, and then into northeast Texas. There is a 15% risk of flash flooding within 25 miles in a given location in this yellow area. Fort Smith, you're right in the heart of this, but Little Rock, you're included, down to Texarkana, and everywhere in between. And then we kind of head on over here, and pretty much the same areas that run a risk of strong to severe storm activity for today has a risk of flash flooding also, hence why you have the flood watches in place. But the yellow areas, 15% risk of flash flooding. All of New Jersey, all of eastern PA, all the way down into the heart of Maryland, into areas of eastern Virginia, all the way up into the states that includes southern New England, you have a 15% risk of flash flooding. So let's break it down section by section. The southeast first, starting off this morning. There is a marginal risk that gets all the way down to central South Carolina, but a lot of this activity into Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, it's just going to be pop-up in nature. But any of these storms that fire up, you're going to know when it fires up on top of you because it's going to be loud, create a ruckus, and it could be strong to severe. Now, we could get some storms here in western areas of Tennessee that could pack a punch also. We could have some very isolated storm activity in Alabama and Mississippi. We just got your normal run-of-the-mill summer storms across Florida, dancing around, outflow boundary driven. But I would say there's more flow up here in Virginia. So these storms that you're seeing in Virginia could hit severe limits a lot easier. So let's go on and just zoom into that area. And this will include areas of northern South Carolina, all of North Carolina, and Virginia, and surrounding states also. We'll start off around 3 to 4 p.m., 5 p.m. You see some storms firing up around Roanoke points east, some storms near Asheville firing up, some pop-up activity in the central sections of South and North Carolina. And then we start to get to 6 p.m., 7 p.m., some storms along the foothills and just Piedmont of Virginia down into North Carolina. And any of these storms, especially the further north you get up towards Charlottesville, D.C. area, these will have a higher risk of getting to strong to severe limits here. Now 10 p.m., 11, could still have some convection out there, but it stops right here. This is as far as we'll go because I just want to show you the latest run of the HRRR model. As you can tell, it's not very widespread. It just whoever gets hit by these storms, it's going to be tough to figure out where they form. Will know it, as they will probably be severe or at least strong. So up here in the northeast today, we'll start off this morning. We start to get into about midday. You see the storms forming in areas of Pennsylvania. We got some storms here in southern Maine also. And then we start to get into this afternoon. It's around 5 or 6 o'clock. And we got a lot of storm activity from the D.C. To Baltimore up to Philadelphia corridor. Some storms kind of between Connecticut and Long Island also. And then, I could see later this evening a line of storms surging through New Jersey and then eventually hitting New York City later this evening and then eventually getting into southern New England later tonight. But let's just go on and zoom into all these areas. First off, let's start off here in northern VA and Maryland. And also Delaware is included in this. Starting off around lunchtime, we get to 2, 3, 4. I will add it's going to get very hot and humid and very uncomfortable, just blistering hot before these storms form. At some point, you're probably going to be begging for it to rain to cool it off. But this is 4 p.m. You see the storms firing here near Winchester, Frederick, Germantown, some storms down here in Charlottesville. You get to 5 p.m., 6 p.m. 5, 6, 7 p.m. looks to be the kind of time frame to watch out for D.C. up to Baltimore, all the way up to Wilmington, Delaware here. And obviously including northern areas of Virginia also. Watch out for maybe a supercell, one of these storms. Doesn't mean that it's going to produce a tornado, but could be some wild structure with some of this. But this looks like some heavy storm activity. Definitely enough forcing with a frontal boundary moving in place, enough lift in the atmosphere, enough wind energy. Damaging winds will be the biggest threat with this. And this continues into 7, 8 p.m. Storms look to sneak down here in Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, some storms just in the Tidewater. These could pack a punch. Eventually we'll try to get to Salisbury. And by the time you're into 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and we could still, by about midnight, be getting a lot of storm activity down here in southern areas of Maryland, maybe southern Delaware, southeast Virginia. And this area just got a lot of rain yesterday from the remnants of Chantal. I keep almost wanting to say Chantel over and over again, but I have to catch myself in the middle of saying it. But Chantal, so just be aware of that. Now, if we are looking at, say, let's look at wind gusts with some of these storms. We'll start off around lunchtime, and you can see just some higher wind gusts like this. If this run of the Her model is what actually happens, then we could have a 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gust with some of these storms, with some of the more severe areas of these storms today. And then we start to get into 7 p.m., 8 p.m. And you can just see pockets of higher wind gusts, 30, 40 mile per hour winds with some of these storms that move in. Now, we'll show you, say, how much rain could fall in this area, because you do have that slight risk of excessive rainfall. And as you can tell, those pockets in purple, this is where over an inch of rain could potentially fall. It's what's being forecast by the Weather Prediction Center. So you're going to get anywhere from a half an inch to an inch and a half of rain in some of these areas today. So be aware of the flooding threat. You guys have had plentiful rain lately. And then we'll show some love to PA starting off around lunchtime. We're going to have a line of storms that's kind of cruising across the southern sections and central areas of PA. These storms will try to get an extra boost from the atmosphere as they move east. So Lancaster, Harrisburg, Reading, I always get them mixed up. And then to 6, 7, 8 o'clock, Allentown, Philadelphia. My face might be in the way of Philadelphia. These storms could begin to impact you guys around 6 to 10 o'clock this evening. And then a lot of this activity begins to kind of merge into a line and impact almost all of New Jersey. So just be aware of storms. Really, I would say more so for kind of like the southern to southeastern areas of PA later this afternoon to this evening. And then showing you kind of New Jersey up into southern New England. Starting off around late morning, we get into the early afternoon hours. If we can get this in motion, 4 p.m., 5 p.m. See that pop-up storm kind of between Connecticut and Long Island. We get into 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Some storms already firing out ahead of what I think is going to be a line of storms that kind of comes out of eastern PA. But you get into 8 p.m., already some storms sort of dancing around between Long Island and Connecticut and the area right into here, open waters. And then we get into 9 p.m., just scattered showers and storms everywhere, from Middletown, Waterbury, Hartford, Bridgeport, New York City, down into just New Jersey, Bridgewater. You guys could get hit by some strong to severe storms. And around 10 p.m. shows a nasty line of storms going right through New York City. 9 to 11 p.m. I would watch out for it. And this line of storms, impacts areas north of New York City and eventually gets into, Connecticut later tonight. But I do think, this is 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Like I said, I do think some storms will form out ahead of this main line. Like this is, 8 to 10 p.m. tonight. Storms are already forming out ahead of what is a kind of materializing line of storms down here. So just be aware these storms could produce 40 to 60 mile per hour wind gust. I wouldn't rule it out, whatsoever. But looking at the risk of flash flooding in this area, and some areas could definitely get a half inch to an inch of rain, as you can tell here. So looking at the south central U.S. for today, a couple areas to watch out for. You get to about this afternoon, we got some storms kind of moving south to north across southeastern and eastern areas of Texas, kind of outflow boundary driven. So a lot of tropical moisture getting pushed up from the south. We got some storms dancing around in Arkansas, some storms up there in Missouri that we'll talk about in the north central timestamp. But we get into this evening, this is like 6, 7, 8 o'clock. You see the storms sort of all dancing around in this region right into here. We do have some storms in southeast New Mexico and western Texas also. Just be aware of those. And just western Texas in general. So if you live in like Amarillo down to Lubbock, down to Midland, just be aware of some strong to severe storms later on this evening. And then we get into the tomorrow morning. But just taking a closer look at Texas, just because of what's been going on lately. But it looks like Kerrville will stay kind of the area where the crazy event happened that just took so many lives. I think the count is up over 100 now. It's just terrible, just terrible situation. But I think most of the rain will stay in the eastern areas of Texas. 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. I mean, if you're vacationing down the Texas coastline, you're going to get a lot of thunderstorm activity, at least late morning. So it might fire up earlier in your day, but eventually all this activity will kind of move north. So by the time you get to 2 p.m., Columbus, Victoria, Houston, the Woodlands, Beaumont, you guys, you're getting the storm activity and it's starting to push north of you folks now. And then College Station, Huntsville, Lufkin, Austin, San Antonio, you guys could get some storms around 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Looks like almost an outflow is pushing inland. This is the way it looks like if I just had to guess kind of what's driving these storms in this area today. But, you start to get into the evening hours and things, the atmosphere is pretty much worked from the early day convection. But, you look up here in northeast Texas, take it to about midday, and we just got to watch the storms to the south. And I do think there'll try to be some storms to the north, too, in northeast areas of Texas. But you see the storms kind of merging in from the south. We got some storms over Shreveport. This is 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., and it almost looks like some convection coming out of southeast Oklahoma and stuff coming out of southeast Texas kind of combine with one another between Dallas and the Texarkana area. Not sure what that's going to do here, but could get some thunderstorms later this evening in northeast Texas for sure. But moving up into Arkansas, I want to watch out for some heavy rain in this area today. Also, we get to about midday, scattered downpours. And then we start to get to about 4 p.m. You see some downpours out here. Little Rock looks to be centered more so in central Arkansas. And then we get into 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Could have a line of storms coming out of Missouri into northern areas of Arkansas. We'll watch out for that. Does show some storms kind of dance around the El Dorado area and southern areas of Arkansas. And then after we get past midnight tonight, it shows kind of more storms firing off what almost looks like a leftover outflow boundary. So don't be surprised if you live in Hot Springs, Little Rock, if you get some storms that materializes kind of late tonight. So if anything wakes you up, it's those storms right there. So just be aware of that. And we look at rainfall in Arkansas. Let's see. And yeah, a good bit of rain could fall between now and 7 p.m. tomorrow. The purple areas, that's where over an inch of rainfall is forecast. But I mean, that inch of rainfall could very well be over Little Rock. Just a lot of rain opportunity across the state of Arkansas over the next 36 hours. The north central U.S., we'll watch that line of storms that will continue across areas of the UP and Michigan throughout the morning hours. And we could get some more storms that form over the UP later this afternoon, northeast areas of Minnesota. We're going to watch for a lot of thunderstorm activity down here in Missouri and Illinois especially. I'm actually going to zoom into that area here in a second. We could get some scattered downpours across eastern areas of Wisconsin to lower Michigan also. And we'll just watch out for that. Some storms. I feel like I haven't talked about Kentucky lately, but some storms are possible in the Indiana-Kentucky border, kind of around, maybe Louisville, Cincinnati, that corridor down there. And we could wake up to some storms in eastern Nebraska tomorrow morning also. But did just want to zoom into Missouri. You guys right now just have a marginal risk. But I wouldn't be surprised if you guys get an upgrade to a slight risk in this area. We'll see what happens. It's around 3 p.m. Got some big storms firing up. Was it Jefferson? I think that's the name of the town around Columbia. Columbia to Rolla. Look at the storms up there near Quincy, Springfield. And watch how the storms kind of move right into the St. Louis area, right around rush hour. So just be aware of some strong to severe storms. Not a high risk of severe weather today, but I could see them bumping it up a category in this area. These storms look pretty intense from the corridor. Looks like it's more so away from Springfield, but roll the St. Louis up to Springfield. This is 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and the storms could make it all the way to Springfield. And this is the area of convection I'm going to watch. It tries to move into northern Arkansas later tonight. But, southern areas of Missouri, watch out later this evening. This is 8 p.m., 9 p.m. But I definitely want to watch for some storms that kind of form and kind of find some boundaries here and then sink southward. These could pack a punch. And like I said, I think that we could get a higher risk of severe weather in this area today. Might get a slight risk upgrade. But then showing some love to Illinois, I think we're going to get some stormy conditions. 3 p.m. Peoria, Galesburg, points north, down to Springfield, Illinois, down to St. Louis. We've already talked about that area. But some storms could make it all the way to Chicago later this afternoon. This is 6 p.m. Champaign getting some storms. And some of these storms will make it all the way into like Lafayette, Indiana. But it does look like they begin to lose some steam. So, I mean, this is 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Shows a pretty well put together line of storms going across Illinois. So out west, looks pretty quiet. Not a whole lot to speak on. Seems like I say that every time. It's just time of the year where it's pretty quiet out west. No crazy, atmospheric flows into California, nothing like that. But some pop-up showers and downpours are possible in New Mexico and Arizona today. So be aware of that. But outside of that, I mean, there's not really anything to really talk about here. And I did just realize I forgot to pull up temperatures, so we're going to do that on the fly. Sometimes I do that. But temperatures today, just going to look at the HER model like we always do. When I tell you it's going to get hot fast today, the HRRR model wants it to get well into the 100s across areas of South Carolina, North Carolina. But the heat is going to be intense. Basically up the I-95 corridor. I mean, it's going to get into the 90s all the way up into southern New England. And there's basically some sort of frontal boundary right into here. And you can see the separation between just kind of, slightly below average temperatures around average summer temps and above average temperatures. It's very hot the closer you get to the eastern seaboard. Southern tier of the country, just normal summer heat. Pretty much the same thing everywhere else also. And then we will look at the western U.S., and very hot conditions. It's actually pretty warm across the western U.S. Above average temperatures. The valley areas between the higher elevated regions are definitely well into the 90s, even low 100s in some areas. So, severe weather days to come. Marginal risk across the plains here. The Dakotas stretching all the way across the heart of Nebraska into northern areas of Kansas. Level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. And then there is a marginal risk of severe weather. So just a very active stormy pattern across the eastern U.S. I keep sliding out my chair. But very active pattern across this area. And some of these storms will reach strong to severe limits. Anywhere from Georgia, eastern Tennessee, across the Carolinas, up to the mid-Atlantic, all the way up to New York City. So level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather there. And then we'll do it again for day 3. This is for Thursday. Level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather here, stretching from northeast Georgia through areas of the Carolinas and then to Virginia and to southern areas of Maryland. But there is a higher risk of severe weather over here. Let's back this up a little bit. So this is for Thursday, a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. This includes Omaha, Lincoln, down into Manhattan, all the way up to Sioux Falls, just areas of Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, South Dakota, down into Kansas. So level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather here, and all we know is that there's a 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in a given location. And there is no outlook past day 3 anymore. So we'll look at the risk of flash flooding for day 2. We got to watch out for our folks here in the upper southeast and the mid-Atlantic. So tomorrow in the yellow, 15% risk of flash flooding within 25 miles in a given location. And then for day 3, we got to watch out for areas, for a smaller area, more so over North Carolina. Now listen, this area right here, this is for Thursday. This is the area that got anywhere from 5 to 10 inches of rain from Tropical Storm Chantal. So it ain't going to take much rain in this area, even an inch of rain. If you get an inch of rain too fast, it's going to cause issues. So they're already highlighting a slight risk area for flash flooding. We'll see if this increases, and then we got to watch out for areas of the Midwest also for Thursday. So, anyways, going forward, just looking at the pattern out ahead. Now, I'm just going to show you Tropical Tidbits version here so we don't have to spend too much time zooming into every individual area. So we're going to start this off for Thursday afternoon, July 10th, here in the next 48 hours. And you're just going to see a lot of green splotches of yellow, orange, and red on your screen. Just think of that as summer thunderstorm activity. Now, what you're going to notice is a lot of this activity continuously kind of pops up every afternoon over the same area. So we get into Friday afternoon, a lot of thunderstorm activity across the southern tier, southeast, mid-Atlantic. larger system up here, which will generate probably a higher end severe weather threat. And then we get into Saturday afternoon. That was Friday. This is Saturday afternoon. Maybe a more organized area of storm activity sweeping in. But you notice just a lot of splotches of green, yellow. And then we get into Sunday. I'll do it again. Looks very active across the eastern U.S. Might take a little break across the southern tier of the country, but still looks very stormy. We get into, Monday. Looks like it might take a break. Then we get into Tuesday, Wednesday. And then as we get into late next week, it looks like the stormy pattern kind of, gets back in place here. And it gets stormy again. And this is when I want to start to watch the tropics also around this time frame, around mid-month. But, this is about day 10, day 11. Shows a lot of storm activity across the eastern U.S. So what you gather from that is, hey, it looks like the pattern supports. And we're going to have breaks, days, maybe a multi-day break here or there. But it looks like we're not going to go any long stretches of days across the southern section of the country and the eastern sections of the country without rain. And if we turn around and we look at this is rainfall between now and Sunday morning, July 20th. Now, this isn't a forecast. It's just a Euro ensemble. But, it's one of the best things to look at model-wise in the world. And as you can tell, this is a smoothed out mean. But, it gives rain to just about everybody. Nobody misses out on rain. Carolinas, Virginia looks to be a hot spot. But, everybody has at least an inch and a half to 3 inch rainfall average out here. Now, just kind of a larger look at everybody here across the Northeast also. It looks pretty rainy. Even across the central section of the country, all the way, west and east of the Mississippi River, looks pretty rainy. So it just doesn't look like we're going to have any shortages of rainfall. And sure enough, if you look between the 13th and the 17th, the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, leaning towards above average precipitation in this lighter shade of green, and the darker shade of green, that's anywhere from a 40 to 50% chance of above average precipitation, in this case rain, because we're not in winter. It's definitely not snowing anywhere across the eastern U.S. For above average precipitation. And even as we look at, say, the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook between the 15th and the 21st of July, still leaning towards above average precipitation chances. So definitely just looks to remain pretty stormy and active. Now, an update on the tropics, guys. The remnants of Chantal is right here. Whatever's left over the core of it has got back over the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of New Jersey. But there's no other areas highlighted out there right now as of around 7:15 a.m. Eastern Time. I do want to watch this little area of thunderstorm activity this morning in this area. Sometimes these little features out here, unorganized or organized areas of shower and storm activity, convection, can sometimes do something sneaky. So it is worth just kind of watching this occasionally, but I don't think this is going to develop. National Hurricane Center does not have, any areas of interest dubbed for this, but, we're just kind of paying attention to, but I doubt it'll develop. But as far as current conditions, that's the only thing that I'm seeing. But I do want to watch kind of the day 8 to day 12 time frame, I would say. And we're going to look at the Euro here. And this is energy in the lower levels of the atmosphere. I'm talking about, like 4,000 or 6,000 feet up in the air. So the splashes of yellow, darker yellows, even orange colors you see on your screen, that's energy in the lower levels of the atmosphere. Now, as you continue to get between that day 7 and day 10 time frame, I want to watch as some energy tries to get caught up here in the open waters of the northern Gulf, kind of like what developed Chantal, but off the coast of the southeast. At this point, we're past day 10. We're all the way out into the morning of the 18th. This is pretty far out. I just want to watch this area in the northern Gulf. Very well could develop off the coast of the southeast, but you start to just see kind of a lower level spin here. It's very open, but I just want to watch down here in the northern Gulf as we get into the middle portion of July. It doesn't show much, but we could get a spin up here. This is kind of the next time frame of interest that I personally want to watch here. Now, you look at the GFS starting off a week from right now, and it shows something similar a little bit sooner in time, but doesn't really have any solid cyclonic rotation with this, and honestly just never gets anything going, and doesn't get anything else going out there either. So if you look at the Euro ensemble, it only shows a whopping 2 members out of 51 that shows an appreciable low pressure. So there's nothing to worry about out there for now. So God bless all y'all. That's all I got. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate y'all. And yeah, we'll have you another video in the morning. God bless.